Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Yes, with the stimulation of the god spirit's blood, Brother Qi and I have just broken through to the legendary tier elementary grade. Guo Xiao said with a smile. Qi Xintian also nodded. He was also quite emotional. This dragon slayer's talent was really heaven-defying. He could actually bathe himself in the blood of a high-level bloodline creature. Then, he could ignore the limitations of his potential and forcefully break through his strength realm. No wonder the dragon slayer had disappeared for so many years. There were still some high-level bloodline races who refused to let go. This method was simply the natural nemesis of those with high-level bloodlines. Not bad. You are the first and second general in our territory to break through to the legendary tier. Everyone else is still a little lacking. Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. Everyone's breakthrough will happen in the next few days. Qi Xintian was not proud. Zhou Zhou and Guo Xiao nodded. With the blessing of the war god, the other people's breakthroughs were indeed only a few days away. The three of them chatted for a while before Qi Xintian and Guo Xiao left with the excuse of consolidating their realms. Seeing this, Zhou Zhou also came to the Lord's shop. "Old Zhou, I'm here," Zhou Zhou said. "How has His Majesty been resting these past 2 days?" Zhou Qingmin stood up and walked to the counter, smiling with concern. "Not bad," Zhou Zhou acknowledged. Zhou Qingmin nodded. Then, he took out 3 boxes from under the counter. The first box contained a purple talent crystal. The second box contained a skill book. The third box contained a black ring. Zhou Zhou's gaze landed on the black ring. Wasn't this the mysterious business ring of the mysterious caravan? Zhou Zhou picked it up and looked at it. As expected, it was the mysterious business ring. The 1 million cubic meters of storage space inside might be welcomed if it were someone else. However, to Zhou Zhou, who had the king's treasure box and the small world in his body, this was completely useless. If not for the fact that the items in the mysterious business ring could only be used by the Lord himself unless they were specially labeled for others, Zhou Zhou would have casually rewarded him to one of his subordinates. He looked at the other 2 items. The purple talent crystal was a talent, War Command Master. Talent, War Command Master. Talent effect. You have experienced thousands of battles of various sizes. In these battles, you have gradually grown step by step. You have transformed into a battle command master who can understand the timing of the battlefield. You are steady but not lacking in intelligence. You are decisive and not lacking in caution. In the face of most wars, you can rely on your exquisite commands to obtain victory on the battlefield. Even in the face of a top-notch war, you can calmly deal with it and protect yourself to the greatest extent. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and quickly remembered. Wasn't this the personal talent of the holy clergyman of the elven race, Reina, yesterday? He did not expect to see it in the Lord's shop today. Then, he looked at the skill book. He realized that this was an extraordinary tier advanced grade spear skill, 9 shadows killing. It could instantly transform into 9 substantial spear shadows when the spear stabbed out, breaking through the illusion. Zhou Zhou had never seen this skill before. It was probably left behind by a martial artist who was good at spearmanship in the territory. Even though the effect of this skill looked a little normal, Zhou Zhou decided to buy it anyway with the intention of sweeping the goods. "How many mist cores do these 3 goods cost?" Zhou Zhou asked. "Talent, War Command Master, is worth 10 legendary tier mist core. 9 shadows killing is worth 20 extraordinary tier mist cores. Mysterious Merchant Ring, worth 500 legendary tier mist cores," Zhou Qingmin said. Zhou Zhou nodded. It was not considered expensive. He took out 510 legendary tier mist cores and 20 extraordinary tier mist cores and bought these 3 items. Then, he bade farewell to Zhou Qingmin and left. Just as he was about to return to the advanced grade Lord's paradise and use these 3 items, Zhang Yuanqi suddenly walked over with a happy expression. "Your Majesty, there's great news," Zhang Yuanqi shouted from afar. Zhou Zhou was stunned. He stopped and watched as Zhang Yuanqi came to his side. "What is it? Are the refugees here again today? How many this time? 10 million? 20 million? Zhou Zhou asked curiously. It's not 10 million, nor is it 20 million. It's a total of 76 million. Zhang Yuanqi said excitedly. Zhou Zhou responded with an "oh" before coming to a realization. Huh. Zhou Zhou was stunned. What did 76 million refugees mean? An intermediate kingdom could only have a population of 76 million people, including all the soldiers and non-soldier subjects. Now, you're telling me that the entire population of an intermediate grade kingdom has arrived outside? What kind of joke was this? Zhou Zhou subconsciously felt that Zhang Yuanqi was joking. However, looking at Zhang Yuanqi's excited expression and thinking about his demeanor, Zhou Zhou felt that the other party did not seem to be such a person. Really? Zhou Zhou could not help but ask. Of course it's true. If you don't believe me, Your Majesty, you can go to the city wall to take a look. Zhou Zhou grabbed Zhang Yuanqi's hand and used spatial teleportation to reach the city wall before he could finish his sentence. And then, he saw a dense sea of people that stretched as far as the eye could see. And it was the kind with families and luggages. Because there are too many refugees. Therefore, I immediately ordered the officials of the various states to separate these refugees and divert them to the territories of the other 5 subcontinents after I heard the news from the border soldiers. These refugees in front of us are just one part of them. About 20 million. The remaining 56 million refugees should have already reached the territory of the 5 states. Zhang Yuanqi explained. Zhou Zhou didn't say anything. He took out the Great Thousand Rivers and Mountains painting and opened it. His consciousness immediately entered it to check on the situation of the various states. A moment later, he retracted his consciousness in the Great Thousand Rivers and Mountains painting. There was still a confused look on his face. He had seen it just now. The 5 states had indeed welcomed more than 56 million refugees. At this moment, the officials of the various states were handling the household registration procedures for these refugees. After the procedures were completed, these refugees would officially become subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. However, it was precisely because of this that made Zhou Zhou was even more puzzled. What day was it today? Why were there suddenly so many refugees? Zhou Zhou looked at Zhang Yuanqi. Zhang Yuanqi seemed to know what Zhou Zhou was thinking and said respectfully, I've already sent someone to investigate. Among the 76 million refugees, 40 million refugees came from various human factions in the human territory. On the way here, they were all protected by the human forces along the way, so almost no one died on the way, causing the loss rate of the refugee tide to almost be reduced to the lowest. As for the other 36 million refugees, they came from the territory of the Black Moon Kingdom, which had already perished. The Black Moon Kingdom is an advanced kingdom. When it was about to fall, the other party's king, the Black Moon King, issued an order. He said that all the subjects who were able-bodied in his kingdom should move to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and receive your protection, Your Majesty. They were led by a general named Yuluo. Where is that general? Zhou Zhou immediately said, It's in the city. Take me to him. Yes, Your Majesty. In front of a staircase with fewer people. General Yuluo, who was wearing black armor, was sitting here. He looked at the people coming and going not far away. Seeing the smiles and happiness on everyone's faces, his cold heart could not help but be deeply touched. It had been a long time since he had seen such an expression on the subjects' faces on this high continent with a war theme. He could see that the expressions on these refugees' faces were not fake, but genuine from the bottom of their hearts. It was precisely because of this that he was even more shocked. His Majesty is right. The King of the Blazing Sun Kingdom should indeed be able to take good care of our Black Moon Kingdom subjects. But, His Majesty? Yuluo thinks that you can do it too. Why must you give up on yourself? General Yuluo had a pained expression. He took out a black scimitar. A faint, cold moonlight condensed on the blade, making it look mysterious and fierce. General Yuluo stroked the saber, his hands trembling slightly. General Yuluo? At this moment, a young man's voice sounded. General Yuluo paused for a moment and raised his head to look over. He saw a handsome man's face that was unforgettable. King of the Blazing Sun? His voice was hoarse. According to the legends he had heard, the king of the blazing sun had unparalleled charm. He didn't believe it at first, but he believed it now after seeing it in person. That's me. Zhou Zhou nodded. Sensing the other party's aura, he realized that there was an unstable divine power aura emanating from the other party's body. It seemed that General Yuluo was not far from the god spirit realm. Zhou Zhou was a little surprised. Then, he said seriously, "General, why don't you come with me to the conference room? You don't have to call me General. Just call me Yuluo. I don't have much to say. I'm not going to your conference room. You're the most outstanding rising star of our human race. You've been entrusted with the hopes of many humans." Yu Luo's red eyes looked at him steadily. "Take good care of the 36 million subjects of His Majesty of the Black Moon. You can definitely do it, right?" "Of course." Zhou Zhou was stunned for a moment before nodding solemnly. "That's good. I heard that you can resurrect life forms, even after a long time. Can you resurrect a low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade god spirit?" Yu Luo asked. "The level is too high. My territory can't revive such an existence for the time being, but I should be able to do it in the future." Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and answered seriously. Previously, because he wanted to ask Heros for help, he had asked Carol Moeli if the god spirits could also be resurrected with the Great Resurrection spell. Carol Moeli's answer was yes. However, the requirements to resurrect a god spirit were extremely harsh. First, depending on the strength of the resurrected god spirit, different amounts of Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystals are required. One was far from enough. The stronger one was, the more Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystals they needed. Even the lowest level low-tier deity, level elementary grade god spirit needed more than 10 basic Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystals to revive. Second, if Carol Moeli's strength had to reach the same level as the corresponding god spirit she was to resurrect. For example, if Carol Moeli wanted to resurrect a low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit, she had to be a low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit herself. Third, the medium of resurrection can't be like before, just an ordinary relic from when the god spirit was alive. It had to be an item with the other party's divinity. For example, divine blood, divine artifacts, divinities, and so on. Fourth, because resurrecting a god spirit was a big deal, Carol Moeli could no longer be the main caster of the resurrection spell. Or rather, the will of the goddess of life had to descend onto Carol Moeli's body. Only the goddess of life, who was master god tier, could personally use her body in the material world to cast the great resurrection spell to revive a god spirit in the material world. Previously, she had said that he needed to use more Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystals. Firstly, it was for the consumption of the great resurrection spell itself. Second, it was for the price of specially inviting the goddess of life to descend. Even so, the goddess of life could not descend with her true body, so she could only descend with her will. Therefore, under such circumstances, even the goddess of life could only revive god spirits below the true god tier level. It was also possible to resurrect a true god tier existence. However, that was not something that ordinary methods could do. Even Carol Moeli didn't know the exact method. Perhaps she would only know about this when her strength advanced to the level of a god spirit. Zhou Zhou easily explained these 4 conditions to the other party. After the other party heard this, a hint of hope appeared on his face, but he was also a little lost. He could indeed revive His Majesty after fulfilling these conditions. But how difficult was it to meet these conditions? He had never even heard of the Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystals. What more about inviting the goddess of life's divine power to descend? The goddess of life was one of the 10 master god tiers. Even the strongest human had only heard of her but had never seen her before. Divine power descending? What was he going to do? He pursed his lips and handed the black machete to Zhou Zhou. "This is the divine artifact of His Majesty when he was alive. He is often nurtured with divine power. His divinity should be contained inside." Zhou Zhou took it and realized that it was a low-tier deity-level elementary grade divine artifact called the Black Moonblade. After sensing it, he nodded. There were indeed some divine substances inside. If you have the chance, please resurrect my majesty. After I've done what His Majesty asked me to do, I'll also do my best to fulfill the conditions you mentioned to resurrect His Majesty. General Yuluo looked at Zhou Zhou and said with a pleading expression. Zhou Zhou's expression did not change, but he was a little moved. An existence that was about to become a god spirit was so humble in front of him, just for a distant hope. Okay. Zhou Zhou nodded seriously. Carol Moali was now at Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Putting aside the Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals, he had to upgrade his territory by 2 levels and let Carol Moali advance to Low-Tier Deity Level Intermediate Grade. Zhou Zhou felt that it wouldn't be too long. The King of 10,000 Kings event in front of him. He believed that he would find enough resources to raise his territory to that level. On the other side, after hearing Zhou Zhou's words, a pale smile appeared on General Yuluo's face. Thank you. After saying that, he took a deep look at the smile and happiness on the subjects' faces in the distance. Then, he looked at the black moon blade in Zhou Zhou's hand and turned to leave. Zhou Zhou also stood on the spot and watched the other party leave. At this moment, he suddenly sensed something and took out a golden token from the king's treasure box. This token was given to him by he, and it was called the Knight's Sacred Token. With it, not only would one have an extremely high status in the Night Temple, but even amongst the entire human race. It would also be quite convenient to work in the various organizations in the Night Temple. This was also Baihe's main goal. Other than that, this Night Temple also had a connection function. At this moment, this golden token was emitting a faint, gentle golden light. Clearly, someone was contacting him through the Knight's Sacred Token. Zhou Zhou didn't think too much about it. He directly injected chaotic energy into it and picked up the call. Zhou Zhou. Baihe's deep voice sounded from the token. Come to the Night Temple. I have something to tell you. Sure. Zhou Zhou did not say much. After saying that, he rushed straight to the Night Temple. Night Temple. Baihe's office. When Zhou Zhou arrived, he saw Temple Lord Baihe watching a video. However, Zhou Zhou did not see what was in the video because his back was facing him. Come on over. Let me show you a video. When Baihe saw Zhou Zhou, he nodded and waved at him. Zhou Zhou walked over and looked on. Baihe pressed the replay button. The video began to play again. On a city wall, a human with a black crown on his head and a silver moon mark on his forehead was standing here with a black scimitar in his hand. Under the city wall was the endless scarlet monster army. Among them, there was no lack of scarlet god spirits who emitted powerful god spirit auras. Black Moon King, surrender. A scarlet god spirit holding a purple whip and wearing a red mask floated in the sky, looking at the Black Moon King who was standing on the city wall. It's quite difficult for the entire human race to survive now. They can't even send you backups. We all know how difficult it is to become a god spirit. Why do you have to fight us to the death for a city that is about to fall? Join us and become a scarlet god spirit. My lord treats the god spirits of any race quite well. It's even possible for you to break through to the true god tier level in the future. The Black Moon King said nothing. He only raised his head and looked at the sky solemnly. The succubus god spirit came from the abyss. As a god spirit with a flexible bottom line, after being transformed into a scarlet god spirit, they immediately abandoned the abyss and hugged the thicker and bigger leg of the Crimson Overlord. Now that he saw this human god spirit not saying a word, he raised his brows and persuaded him a few more times. As an abyssal succubus, he was quite confident in his abilities of enchantment, bewitchment, and art of speech. However, he realized that the other party was still unmoved after he spoke until his mouth was dry. He gradually felt anger rise in his heart. If not for the fact that he was afraid that the other party would fight to the death, he would have directly self-destructed and perished together. Why would he waste his saliva for nothing? Attack. Kill this stubborn human god spirit. Whoever can pluck the divinity of this human god spirit first can come to my shrine to look for me tonight. The succubus god spirit said coldly. These words, mixed with the law of enchantment, made the tens of millions of Scarlet Army soldiers below immediately go crazy. Especially the other Scarlet God spirits. Their bodies were restless and eager to try. He didn't have to wait long. A low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade God spirit was the first to rush out with a sinister smile. He held a spine-bone saber and charged at the Black Moon King. At this moment, under everyone's gaze, a relieved smile appeared on the Black Moon King's face. "It's finally here," he said softly. The world suddenly froze. It was as if time had stopped flowing. Everything in the world became motionless. The Scarlet God spirit that was flying towards the Black Moon King with a sinister smile. A furious succubus god spirit with a purple whip in his hand. There were also tens of millions of Scarlet Legion soldiers charging towards the Black Moon King. They all stopped in place with no change in expression. In this empty space, only the Black Moon King could still move. He looked at the sky. The huge round eye condensed from boundless pure white light. That was the legendary Supreme Eye. It was a supreme phenomenon that would only appear when the Supreme Will manifested in the world. Under the Supreme Eye, there was no distance in space. Time could not flow either. When the Black Moon King saw this, not only was he not afraid, but the smile on his lips also became more and more obvious. "Ha ha ha." He laughed insolently. "Supreme Will. Take this." He erupted with all the divine power in his body and even burned his divinity as he rushed towards the Supreme Eye. And then, he vanished. It had truly disappeared. It was as if a bubble had burst. After the Supreme Eye disappeared and time and space returned to normal, on the ground, only the black robe and the black scimitar were left. In front of the screen, Zhou Zhou fell silent. With a flip of his right hand, the black moon blade appeared in his hand. He faltered slightly before asking with a complicated expression, "Did he give it to you as well?" Zhou Zhou told He about Black Moon. "I see. You Luo probably took advantage of the chaos to obtain it." He was enlightened. Then, he looked at Zhou Zhou and said, "I didn't call you over for any other reason. I didn't want to burden you. I just wanted you to know what you should know. Otherwise, the Black Moon King's death would be too unknown." "I know." Zhou Zhou nodded and asked, "How are the Scarlet Legion doing?" The Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord made an agreement not to personally attack the forces below. Therefore, other than the death of the Black Moon King who violated the Supreme Agreement, after the Scarlet Forces regained their freedom, they sensed the traces of the Supreme Will and were so frightened that they fled. They didn't even search through the Black Moon Royal City. But even if they want to find something, they won't be able to. The subjects and treasures in the capital have already been moved away by the Black Moon King in advance. He said. Zhou Zhou nodded. After that, He didn't say anything else and directly asked Zhou Zhou to leave. After Zhou Zhou left, he looked at the video in front of him and replayed it. Then, he sighed slightly. "Black Moon King," he said softly. The entire upper echelons of the human race already knew about this matter. The attitudes of the upper echelons of the human race were very complicated. They did not expect the Black Moon King to actually do such a thing. He continued to get busy without more thoughts about it. On the other side, after Zhou Zhou walked out of the Night Temple, he kept thinking about the video just now. At this moment, Zhang Yuanqi walked over quickly. "Your Majesty," Zhang Yuanqi said respectfully. "Why?" Zhou Zhou came back to his senses and asked. "Your Majesty, the 76 million subjects have all been registered. Among these subjects, I discovered 20 lifestyle professionals with the lowest being epic tier and the highest being legendary tier. Other than that, there are no other high-level combat professionals. However, there are about 10 million professionals below the yellow-gold tier. Other than these professionals, there's also a Frost Dragoness with an extraordinary tier hero's fate level slot, Hyvid, who has joined our Blazing Sun Kingdom. She has the bloodline of a Frost Dragon, and her potential is at the legendary tier elementary grade." Zhang Yuanqi smiled. Zhou Zhou nodded. It seemed that his 20 reputation rating talents and the extraordinary tier hero rewarded by his Lord talent had come after defeating the Ice Demon Kingdom. The number of heroes under Zhou Zhou's command had actually reached 52, barely exceeding half a hundred. He had only established his kingdom a few days ago. It was unbelievable just thinking about it. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and said, "Other than that hero, the professionals among the refugees will not be incorporated into my army for the time being. Instead, they will join the city guards to increase the city defense power and protect the capital and other territories and cities in the kingdom's territory. When they have enough combat experience, choose the best and join the Blazing Sun Army and other outposts. As for the rest of the city guards, when the time is right, I will also give them an official position." He could not take all the soldiers away every time he went on an expedition. It was necessary to leave some soldiers to protect his territory. Previously, Zhang Yuanqi had sent people to gather the freelance professionals in the territory to form a militia-like city guard to protect the territory. Now, the professionals among these refugees could greatly strengthen the strength of the city guards to protect their families and country, protecting his base camp from enemies from the outside world. This way, he could continue to focus on leading troops out to fight in the future. "Your Majesty is wise. Your Majesty, I have another piece of good news to report to you." When Zhang Yuanqi said this, he could not help but look excited again. "What else is good?" Zhou Zhou was stunned and asked in confusion. Zhang Yuanqi smiled and then said a piece of news that shocked and surprised Zhou Zhou. "An existence has advanced to the god spirit realm not long ago in our kingdom." "What?" Zhou Zhou came back to his senses and immediately asked, "Who is it?" "It's a member of the Ice Demon clan called Vicky. He was already a legendary tier powerhouse to begin with. However, the other party has never joined the army of the original Ice Demon Kingdom. Instead, he has been living in the Ice Demon King Kingdom as a solo expert to cultivate. He never appeared until the Ice Demon Kingdom was destroyed. However, last night, the other party obtained some fortuitous opportunity and suddenly advanced to a low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit. Then, he suddenly came over and said that he wanted to see your Majesty." At this point, a puzzled look appeared on Zhang Yuanqi's face. Logically speaking, this kind of lone expert had no attachments. Once he broke through to become a god spirit, the world's relationships, wealth, status, and other things were even less attractive to he. Normally speaking, after such lone god spirits broke through, they would usually leave their hometowns and wander the entire high continent or even the myriad worlds to find a place to build a divine kingdom. Or they would be like Heros and Zhe Wu, finding a faction at least at the empire or even the divine kingdom level to rely on as their own faction and obtain the resources to advance to a higher level of the god spirit. Of course, there were also god spirits who would covet the power of the world and suddenly want to snatch a kingdom and become the ruler of a country to enjoy the benefits of power. However, Zhang Yuanqi abandoned this possibility without thinking. What a joke. The 4 god spirits of the Ice Demon Kingdom had all been killed by the Blazing Sun Kingdom. He was a low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit who had just become a god. Even if he wanted to take revenge, what trouble could he cause? Wouldn't that be courting death? When Zhou Zhou heard this, he also thought of what Zhang Yuanqi had thought of. He thought for a few seconds and asked, "Is he a subject of my Blazing Sun Kingdom now?" "Yes." Zhang Yuanqi nodded. All the ice demons in the Ice Demon Prefecture have changed their nationality to subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. At that time, the other party was only a legendary tier advanced grade expert of the Ice Demon race. He had no objections to this matter and directly agreed. Zhang Yuanqi said. Zhou Zhou laughed when he heard that. Then there's no problem. The Lord Talent was created by the Supreme Will. Even if it was a God Spirit, if it was at the true God tier Master God tier level, it might be able to resist the effects of the Lord Talent. However, a small God Spirit that had just advanced would definitely not be able to resist his Lord Talent. Where is he now? When did he come? Just got here. All right, let's go find Heros and the others first before meeting this new God Spirit of our Blazing Sun Kingdom. Zhou Zhou already had some guesses about the other party's sudden breakthrough to become a God Spirit. However, he would not meet the other party so rashly. In any case, with Heros and the others around, it would be a waste of his resources if he did not use their power to scare them. Your Majesty is wise. Zhang Yuanqi smiled and nodded. Then, the two of them walked towards Heros and Zhou Wu's residence. In a reception room in the administrative hall, when Zhou Zhou, Zhang Yuanqi, Heros, and Zhou Wu arrived, they saw the ice demon god spirit that Zhang Yuanqi had mentioned. The other party was a female ice demon god spirit. He was tall and had a cold face. He had ice blue eyes and wore an ice blue dress, and his ice blue hair was tied into the shape of an ice flower. At that moment, he was sitting in his seat. Faint ice flowers fluttered around him. An invisible divine might fluctuated from his body, giving him an inexplicable sense of deterrence. However, other than Zhang Yuanqi, who felt a little pressured, the other three people present treated this as if it was nothing. Zhou Zhou silently released an invisible barrier on Zhang Yuanqi, offsetting the divine pressure that the other party was enduring. The pressure on Zhang Yuanqi instantly dissipated, and his expression instantly returned to normal. Then, Zhou Zhou's gaze landed on the ice demon god spirit again. It had to be said, even though the human race and the ice demon race had different aesthetic standards, this female ice demon in front of him still gave him a beautiful and cold feeling. He looked at him. Attribute information appeared. Subject: Vicky. God name: God of Ice and Flower, Lady Ice Flower. Divine duty: Ice and Snow. Territory: Blazing Sun Kingdom. Strength level: Low-tier deity level, elementary grade. Ability overview: Vicky is a member of the Ice Demon King clan who was stranded among the people due to the internal strife of the royal family. Before he died, his butler told he that unless he had a certain level of strength, he must never return to the royal family to take revenge. The god spirits of the Ice Demon Kingdom would not spare he just because he had the royal family's bloodline. Vicky trusted his butler very much, so he had been cultivating diligently. It was only when he became a legendary tier advanced grade powerhouse that he learned that the Ice Demon King clan had already destroyed itself and was at a loss as to what to do. It was only when he became a god spirit that his mind suddenly gave he instructions, allowing he to come to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Bloodline: Ice Demon Race Bloodline, 80%. Ice Demon God Bloodline, 20%. Skills: Law Skill, Ice Flower Rain, Low-tier deity level elementary grade Summoning Snow King, Legendary tier elementary grade Blizzard, Epic tier advanced grade Invisibility, Epic tier advanced grade Extreme Ice Arrow, Epic tier advanced grade Ice Coffin Spell, Epic tier elementary level elementary grade Summoning Big Hail, Extraordinary elementary grade Snowfall Spell, Diamond elementary grade Ice Hockey Spell. Loyalty: 90. Potential: High tier deity level advanced grade. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. A normal ice demon was directly promoted to a god spirit? Normally speaking, most existences who could become god spirits had the potential to become heroes. Therefore, most god spirits first mastered hero skills from normal life forms and became heroes. Then, with the hero slots and hero skills as the foundation, they mastered god spirit slots and law skills and broke through to become god spirits. It could only be said that he was talented to directly break through to become a god spirit without first becoming a hero. However, he would definitely be slightly weaker than those existences who had both the destiny of a hero and the slot of a god spirit in the future. Their slots and hero skills were slightly inferior after all. At the same time, Vicky also saw Zhou Zhou and the others. His gaze landed on Heros and Zhou Wu. Sensing the powerful divine might on them, he immediately stood up and said respectfully, "Greetings, high-tier god spirit." Heros and Zhou Wu responded calmly. Then, Heros looked at Zhou Zhou and clicked his tongue in wonder. "You're really lucky. You've only established the kingdom for 2 days, and a god spirit has already been born in the territory. With such a foundation, we can basically transition to the advanced kingdom smoothly as long as we don't provoke any powerful countries in the future. That depends on whether he is willing to stay in our Blazing Sun Kingdom." Zhou Zhou chuckled. Then, they sat down and looked at Vicky. Sit down first. What are your plans for the future? I. I plan to stay in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Is that all right? Vicky hesitated. Of course, but can I know why? You're a member of the royal family of the Ice Demon Kingdom. Are you staying with me because you want to take revenge? Zhou Zhou said jokingly. Unexpectedly, Vicky seemed to have been provoked and hurriedly stood up. No, no, no. Why would I have such thoughts? I was chased out by the former Ice Demon King race. The Ice Demon Kingdom's Ice Demon King race only has aggro for me, not kinship. Originally, I wanted to wait for my cultivation to be successful before taking revenge myself. In the end, you took action in advance. To be honest, I feel a little regretful. Vicky smiled bitterly. And I also saw that you didn't treat our Ice Demon clan unfairly. The subjects of the Ice Demon clan are living quite well here. If you treat our Ice Demon clansmen like slaves and livestock, I might have some hostile thoughts. However, since you're so good to us, I can't help but agree with you. Why would I take revenge on you? Zhou Zhou nodded. The war between the lords of all races was destined to end in a harmonious race. This was also the reason why he treated all other races equally. In any case, there was the peaceful times. Zhou Zhou was not worried that they would cause any trouble. This was also the reason why he was so confident in creating racial harmony. Of course, he would definitely be biased towards the human race. This was decided by his own race. He also loved the human race. If others said it, there was nothing he could do. Then, are you planning to stay in our Blazing Sun Kingdom, continuing your cultivation for God's Spirit, or are you planning to work for me and follow me to battle the myriad races and witness their glory? Zhou Zhou asked. Before I answer this question, I would like to ask Your Majesty a question. Vicky looked at Zhou Zhou and said, What is it? Actually, I could already sense that even though I can advance to become a God Spirit, the success rate is only about 40%. But when I was cultivating last night, I suddenly felt that my chances of becoming a God Spirit seemed to have been affected by an external force, causing my chances of becoming a God Spirit to increase by about 10%. Excuse me, are you helping me from the shadows? As soon as these words were spoken, Zhou Zhou did not show anything. However, Heros and Zaiwu were suddenly stunned. Then, they looked at Zhou Zhou with bright eyes. Increase the probability of becoming a God Spirit by 10%? This was no small matter. If it were the elven races of the Elven Empire, their chances of becoming a God Spirit would increase by 10% when they advanced to the God Spirit realm. The Elven Empress Elizariel was even willing to directly start a war between empires that were evenly matched. Zhou Zhou also felt their gazes and felt a little helpless. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have asked this fellow. There was no way to avoid this question now. If he didn't explain it clearly, he didn't know what these two God spirits would think. He flipped his right hand, and a bone necklace appeared in his hand. The faint fluctuations of a special divine artifact and the terrifying pure power of faith made the three God spirits present instantly fall silent. Race divine artifact? Zaiwu licked his lips. Heros looked at this race divine artifact with blazing flames in his eyes. Vicky stared at the necklace and exclaimed excitedly, "This is our Ice Demon race's divine artifact." Zhou Zhou nodded. It was the Ice Demon race's race divine artifact, the Ice Demon God's blessing. On the other hand, Heros and Zaiwu were stunned when they heard that it was a race divine artifact of the Ice Demon race. Then, the two of them hurriedly sensed the power of faith on it. When they really felt the pure faith of the Ice Demon race from the terrifying divine power of faith, they could not hide the disappointment in their eyes. A divine artifact of a single race was simply worthless to other races. This was because the effect of its race's divine artifact was unable to affect other races. In the eyes of this race divine artifacts were supreme treasures for them. Even if they had a true divine artifact to exchange for, perhaps the races who had a divine artifact of the race would not be willing to exchange for it. In the eyes of the other races, a race divine artifact was at most a collectible. Unless this other race took in the race that the divine artifact belonged to as a subsidiary race, it would not be of much use. Between the various races and factions, rarely would there be racial wars to snatch divine artifacts of races other than their own. Just like Zhou Zhou, everyone knew that this human lord, Zhou Zhou, had 3 race divine artifacts. One of the incomplete swords of Xin Yuan was a race divine artifact exclusive to the humans of Cerulean planet. The second was the Lucky Star. It was a public-type race divine artifact. Because it was now bound to Zhou Zhou, it was useful to the entire human race. The third item was the Ice Demon God's Blessing, which only worked on the Ice Demon clan. As for why Zhou Zhou was well known now, apart from the achievement he had worked hard for in the 2 supreme will activities, another huge reason was because of the Lucky Star, a public-type divine artifact of the race. As for the other 2 divine artifacts, the people of foreign races were not that interested. After all, it was useless against his own race. If they only wanted to stop the development of the human race and the human race on the Cerulean planet, they would think of snatching these 2 race divine artifacts, but they would definitely not pay too much of a price. After all, it was useless for him to snatch it back. Speaking of which, when Zhou Zhou saw that Heros and Zhe Wu were not interested in this race divine artifact, he heaved a sigh of relief. He was still a little wary of these 2 deities who could only be considered as hired gods and not native subjects. At this moment, Vicky also saw the effect of this divine artifact clearly. He looked enlightened. Then, he stood up and said to Zhou Zhou respectfully, "Since my opportunity to become a god was bestowed by a divine artifact of the race, it's equivalent to being bestowed by your majesty. God of Ice and Flowers Vicky is willing to serve your majesty and conquer all races." A smile appeared on Zhou Zhou's face. "Sure, in the future, Zhang Yuanqi will arrange a special benefit for you that belongs solely to the god spirits. Also," Zhou Zhou waved his right hand. An ice-blue robe appeared in front of him. "This king has said before, no matter who breaks through to become a god spirit, I will give them a low-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifact. This ice demon sacrificial robe is your reward." Zhou Zhou said, "Thank you, your majesty." Vicky was ecstatic. While this was the first time he became a god spirit, he also knew how precious divine artifacts were. He had just become a low-tier deity-level god spirit, but he had already given away a divine artifact that belonged to him. This was definitely something that countless other god spirits dreamed of. Even Heros and Zhe Wu looked envious when they saw this. When they first became god spirits, they did not receive such treatment. Previously, their divine artifacts were either passed down from their race or obtained from the forbidden mystic realm by taking countless risks. Unlike Vicky, directly obtaining a low-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifact after becoming a god spirit, even though they also had Zhou Zhou's 6 divine artifacts, they were only temporarily lent to them and did not belong to them. After completing the contract, he had to return it. At this moment, the 2 god spirits wanted to leave the Elven Empire and join the Blazing Sun Kingdom, becoming the official offerings of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. However, it was impossible to let them leave with the current situation of the Elven Empire. They looked at each other and saw helplessness in each other's eyes. On the other side, Vicky took the ice demon sacrificial robe and put it on. He was beautiful to begin with. Now that he was wearing the ice blue robe, he looked even more beautiful. "Your Majesty, I would like to take 2 days off." At this moment, Vicky stroked the ice demon's sacrificial robe on her body and said in embarrassment, "Why?" Zhou Zhou was stunned. "I plan to find a suitable star to build my own divine kingdom. This process will take about 2 to 3 days. Is that okay? If your Majesty is worried, you can come with me," Vicky said. As soon as these words were spoken, Heros and Zhe Wu immediately looked at him in surprise. It was as if they could not believe that the other party would say such a thing. Was this lady crazy? Did she trust the king of the blazing sun that much? Zhou Zhou also came to a realization. An existence that had just become a god spirit indeed had to establish his own divine kingdom. According to his bloodline inheritance, the establishment of a divine kingdom meant the complete stabilization of one's divinity. Unless there were special circumstances, such as serious injuries, the god spirit would not be in danger of falling as long as the divine kingdom existed. At the same time, the establishment of the divine kingdom also represented the faith of the god spirit that they represented. With a truly stable anchor point in the world, after the true believers under them died, they would also have a place for their souls to return to. The speed at which their faith accumulated would also greatly increase. It could be seen how important a divine kingdom was to God's spirits. However, it was precisely because of this that, typically, the location of a divine kingdom was the biggest secret of God's spirits. Normally, God's spirits would not tell outsiders the location of their divine kingdom. Otherwise, once the location of the divine kingdom was revealed, it would attract external enemies to attack. Once the divine kingdom was broken, the god spirits would fall from their positions and become normal extraordinary tier life forms. In more serious cases, there was a high chance that they would even die. This was also why Heros and the others were so surprised by Vicky's words. Even if Vicky was indebted to Zhou Zhou for becoming a god, there was no need for him to reveal the location of her divine kingdom. Zhou Zhou thought about it and finally gave up on the idea of following Vicky to build a divine kingdom. I'm really curious. However, 2 to 3 days is too long. I still have to continue the activities of the Supreme Will. Go by yourself and be careful. Zhou Zhou said. Vicky's loyalty was very high. It had already reached 90 points. Such high loyalty might be related to the fact that he had helped the other party eliminate the royal family of the Ice Demon Kingdom and the opportunity for he to become a god spirit. Therefore, he was naturally not worried that the other party would take the divine artifact and run away. Heros and Zhou were even more puzzled upon hearing Zhou Zhou's words. Did this lord and subordinate trust each other so much? One was willing to reveal the location of his divine kingdom, while the other was willing to give the divine artifact to a god spirit he had just met and even dared to let the other party leave the territory with the divine artifact. The two gods found it unbelievable. But it had to be said. They were very envious of such heart-to-heart behavior. Yes, Your Majesty, Vicky said gratefully. Then, they left the reception room together. After Zhou Zhou and the others left the reception room, Vicky took the lead to bid farewell to the others. Then, she flew into the sky alone and quickly disappeared. Among the many stars in the legendary star sea, other than most of them being natural stars, a small portion of the other stars are projections of the divine kingdoms in the world after the god spirits established them. That's something to look forward to. Zhou Zhou looked in the direction where Vicky flew off and sighed. With Your Majesty's talent, it will definitely be very easy for you to become a god spirit. Heros smiled. Zhou nodded. The two god spirits were discerning people. They could naturally tell at a glance how astonishing Zhou Zhou's aptitude was. He could use law skills and divine artifacts before becoming a god spirit. He could even use divine artifacts that were above his level. Even the top bloodline races like the original spirit race, the chaos gods race, and the shepherd's god race could not compare to this ability. Zhou Zhou smiled and did not say anything. By the way, Your Majesty, I saw that in your territory, other than humans, there are many other races. There are even races of fog monsters. They should be the enemies you defeated before and surrendered to you, right? Aren't you afraid that conflict will break out between them because of what happened in the past? At this moment, Zhou asked curiously. Zhou and Heros had seen many lords like Zhou Zhou, who encouraged the fusion of many races. But for someone like Zhou Zhou, they had just arrived at the High Continent not long ago, yet they dared to gather so many people of foreign races together as their subjects. They even dared to bring them out to fight without any worries. This was the first time they had seen a lord who was not afraid of being stabbed in the back. There were only two possibilities for this situation. Either Zhou Zhou was a fool, which was naturally impossible, or Zhou Zhou had the confidence to resolve the problem of racial integration. Zhou and Heros were puzzled. Where did Zhou Zhou's confidence come from? The future of the war of the Lord of all races is the future of harmonious coexistence between different races. That's a given. Therefore, since I can try it when there are few subjects, I'm still willing to try it when I'm confident that I can ensure the safety of myself and the subjects. Otherwise, when there are more subjects in the future, when a new race is integrated, the repulsive force might be very strong. Zhou Zhou said half-truthfully. His greatest confidence was the diamond-level Lord talent, peace and prosperity. Now, this confidence was naturally the extraordinary level Lord talent, peaceful times. However, this was not something that outsiders could tell. Moreover, what he said was part of his true thoughts. When there were few subjects, everyone was anxious about survival every day and focused on it. Why would they care about the people of foreign races? The more people of foreign races came, the stronger the territory would be, and the higher the probability of survival in the battles of the Lord of all races. At this moment, the subjects could not wait for more people of foreign races to come. On the contrary, if there were more subjects of the same race in the territory, the pressure on survival would be greatly reduced. Then, this race would naturally begin to instinctively exclude outsiders to ensure the orthodoxy of bloodline and status. At that time, it would not be easy to promote the harmonious coexistence of multiple races. Actually, so far, there are still some violent conflicts in my territory. The reason for the conflict between them is mostly because of old grudges. Once victory and defeat are decided, regardless of life and death, the grudges between the two sides must be written off. We can't implicate our descendants. Zhang Yuanqi's idea is to set up a life and death arena. It's best to settle the grudges of our generation in our generation. There's no need to implicate the next generation. They don't know anything. They haven't done anything. There's no need for them to accept the aftermath of the war. That way, our descendants will always be unlucky. I don't have a better solution, so I let Zhang Yuanqi do as he wants. Zhou Zhou said. Actually, there was one thing he did not say. Those who initiated the life and death duel were mostly the few monster subjects and people of foreign races who joined later. As for the human subjects and some other people of foreign races, almost no one would take the initiative to initiate a life and death duel. Why? This was because ever since he rose to prominence, especially after obtaining a heaven-defying divine art like the small resurrection spell, his soldiers had always maintained a shocking record of 0 deaths. No one had died, so there was naturally no deep hatred. Naturally, no one would initiate a life and death duel out of boredom. Only a very small number of the people of foreign race soldiers who had been instigated by incite defection started a life and death duel because they had witnessed their own people being killed by human soldiers and other people of foreign race soldiers. However, there were very few of them. That was because, be it the high loyalty brought about by incite defection or the recently promoted peaceful times, they subconsciously did not do anything that would affect the peaceful atmosphere of the territory. In addition, they had also enjoyed the benefits of the small resurrection spell. They had also seen more and more people of foreign races become subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. They had also seen them build the Blazing Sun Kingdom together with him and their friendship. Most importantly, it was the peaceful social atmosphere that people had cherished for a long time. Therefore, unless it was a deep-seated hatred. Otherwise, not many subjects would initiate a life and death duel. So much so that most of the life or death arenas set up by Zhang Yuanqi were unused. It might only open once or twice a week. Heras and Zhe Wu sighed with emotion when they heard that. In the High Continent, how to resolve the various bad trails left behind by the war had always been one of the main concerns of the lords. However, no one had a good solution. It was the same even for Divine Kingdom lords. Perhaps it was only when the mighty power of time turned everything into history and books that people would gradually forget these days of blood and fire. Zhou Zhou did not say anything else after all. He first gathered all the soldiers, including the Star Alliance's lord and soldiers, as well as the mysterious caravan. Then, they used the spatial teleportation array to arrive at a black iron tier territory that they had conquered last night. After the army teleported here, Nazario, who was in charge of guarding this place, immediately flew over. "Your Majesty," it said in a low voice. "Did anything happen last night?" "No." Nazario shook his head. Zhou Zhou nodded. "Come on," he said. Then, through Zheng Fugue and his mysterious caravan, they entered the Myriad Illusions small world again. In the Myriad Illusions small world, Zhou Zhou and company had just appeared in the Myriad Illusions small world when the scene they saw stunned them. This was because they actually saw Cab and more than 100 illusory fate race beings not far from them. It was as if they knew that they would appear here and waited here. At the same time, Zhou Zhou also saw an illusory life race member in a yellowish-brown robe. He stood alone. The other illusory fate race members seemed to be very afraid of him. They all distanced themselves from him and looked at him with fear from time to time. Zhou Zhou narrowed his eyes slightly. This guy, he had not seen it when he came yesterday. King of the Blazing Sun. At this moment, when Cab and the other illusory life race members saw Zhou Zhou and the others appear, their eyes lit up. They distanced themselves from the yellow-brown-robed illusory life race member and came to their side as if they were escaping. "What are you doing here?" Zhou Zhou asked. He asked. It was Long who calculated it. Cab whispered, "That's Long?" Zhou Zhou looked at the mysterious existence in the yellowish-brown robe. "What Long?" "He's a demon that eats my people. He must be up to no good to call us here. We have to be careful. That guy might be hiding something. Maybe he called us here as part of a conspiracy." The other members of the Phantom race were clearly very afraid of Long. When they heard this, they seemed to be agitated and said excitedly, "Yes, that's him," Cab said with a complicated tone. Zhou Zhou looked at Long. He could sense that the illusory fate race member, Long, was also looking at him. However, what surprised Zhou Zhou was that he could sense that the other party's life force was like a candle flame in the wind. It was obvious that he did not have long to live. "Your Majesty, I know what you want, okay?" At this moment, a hoarse voice reached Zhou Zhou's ears. It was Long's voice transmission. "You know what I want?" Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. "What you want is probably the divination method and Bodhi Supreme that our illusory life race found more than 10,000 years ago, right?" Long said. "How do you know that?" "At our illusory life race's current stage, the only things that can still be considered valuable are those few things. What's so difficult to guess?" Long said calmly. "How about we make a deal?" "What deal?" "If you can leave this place with the members of the illusory life race, I'll give you the Eye of the Heavens Anger Secret Law, the Sealing the Heavens and Earth Void Life Concealing Technique, and the Bodhi Supreme that has one use left. If you can't bring the illusory life race out of here, I'll still hand over the Eye of the Heavens Anger Secret Law and the Sealing the Heavens, Earth, and Void Life Concealing Technique to you. Then, you can leave this place and never interfere in the matters here again. By the way, the Eye of the Heavens Anger Secret Law is the secret technique you want to find," Long said. When Zhou Zhou heard this, he immediately narrowed his eyes and looked at it. "I don't understand you." "In the eyes of the illusory life race, you're clearly a demon that eats its own clansmen and has even reared them for consumption. Why are you actually treating the illusory life race better now? Why? Did you suddenly have a conscience when you saw an outsider enter?" Zhou Zhou asked. "There's no point," Long said. "What?" Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. "I said there's no point. No matter what my initial goal is, what's done is done. Other than knowing the meaning of what you were thinking back then, it doesn't mean much to outsiders," Long said. A look of contemplation flashed across Zhou Zhou's eyes. Then, he said calmly, "But if I kill you, I think I can get what I want." "You can't have it. This is the world of our illusory life race. I was once the patriarch of the illusory life race. If I want to hide something, no one can get it. Furthermore, only I, the former patriarch, still have the Eye of the Heavens Anger Secret Law and the Sealing the Heavens, Earth, and Void Life Concealing Technique. The other illusory life races don't know. I'm dead. You won't get anything," Long said. "Can't get it?" Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. "Can I say that I've already seen the two loots in your spoils of war, the Eye of the Heavens Anger Secret Law and the Heaven Sealing Void Life Concealing Technique?" On the other hand, Bodhi Supreme was indeed not on him. However, Zhou Zhou was not afraid of this. At most, He would get Xiao Xian to come over and directly start the blessing of the God of Fortune mode. He thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. I'll try, Zhou Zhou said. Long said nothing, just stared at him in silence. Zhou Zhou did not say anything else. Even though he had the confidence to obtain the treasure, he was more curious about what the other party was selling. Even though the two of them said a lot, it was only a matter of a thought. The illusory life race members only felt that the human lord's gaze drifted for a while before he focused his gaze on them again. My lord, can you take us away now? An elder one of the illusory life race asked anxiously. It was the elder one from the illusory life race who asked Zhou Zhou if he could take them away yesterday. The other illusory life race members also looked at Zhou Zhou. Due to their failure yesterday, the illusory life race did not have much hope. But what if? I can try. Looking at the gazes of the illusory life race, Zhou Zhou said with a faint smile, Elder Zhang, get ready. Zhou Zhou said to Zheng Fugui. Okay. Zheng Fugui grinned. Then, he stood up and looked at the 100-odd members of the illusory life race tribe in front of him. He looked around and asked, is there anyone who is willing to try to leave this place with me? The illusory life race members looked at each other. I'll do it. Cab raised his hand and said weakly. Zhou Zhou and Zheng Fugui nodded. Then, Zheng Fugui helped the other party put on the mysterious caravan's starry sky merchant robe. With a casual wave of his hand, he opened up a complete and stable spatial passageway. As soon as the spatial passageway opened, all the members of the illusory Fate clan immediately looked at the tunnel with desire in their eyes. Even Long, who was not far away, took 2 steps forward and stopped. Come on. Zheng Fugui said kindly to Cab. Will do. Cab swallowed his saliva and walked into the spatial passageway with Zheng Fugui. The next second, all the life forms present saw Zheng Fugui and Cab walk into the spatial passageway together and disappear. Then, the spatial passageway closed as well. The illusory life race waited for a while. When he realized that Cab was not expelled, their expressions immediately became excited. Some of the illusory life race members even knelt on the ground in excitement and cried bitterly. Cab didn't come back. He really didn't come back. He must have gone out. He must have successfully gone out. Is the outside world really that good? Can we eat our fill in the future, Mom? Mom doesn't know either, but no matter where we go, it's better than staying in this world and waiting for death. All the illusory life race members were extremely excited. Some of the illusory Fate race members who were born in the myriad illusions small world asked in confusion and desire. Our illusory life race has finally escaped this prison. The old man who spoke first looked up at the sky with tears streaming down his face. Wait a minute. Maybe it's a trap. The other illusory life race member was still a little cautious. He looked at Zhou Zhou and said, Lord, can you let Cab return? I don't have any other intentions. I just want to confirm his safety. The others also looked at Zhou Zhou. Understandable. Zhou Zhou nodded and communicated with Zheng Fugui in his heart, asking him to bring Cab back. As the spatial passage opened up again, Zheng Fugui walked out of the spatial passage while holding Cab's hand. At this moment, Cab's face was rosy, and his expression was filled with shock and reluctance. From time to time, he would turn around to look at the spatial passageway. When he saw the spatial passageway close, he could not help but reveal a disappointed expression. Child, how's the outside world? Child, did you sense the natural energies? Child, is the outside much better than the myriad illusions small world? Cab had just returned. A group of people from the illusory life race clan immediately surrounded him and spoke excitedly. Cab immediately nodded and told everyone what he had seen outside. Even though there was not much content, it still dazzled the illusory life race as if they had personally experienced it. Everyone, as long as you promise me here, you will become subjects of my blazing sun kingdom now. I'll send everyone out immediately. Zhou Zhou struck while the iron was hot and looked at the illusory life race clansmen. The members of the illusory life race agreed without hesitation, just as they agreed to become the blazing sun kingdom subjects. The extraordinary tier Lord talent, peaceful times immediately took effect. When all the illusory life race members looked at Zhou Zhou again, their eyes were filled with heartfelt respect and love. Zhou Zhou smiled. Then, without wasting any time, he asked Zheng Fugui to put on the mysterious merchant's attire for all the members of the illusory life race. Then, he opened a spatial passageway and left the prison that had trapped the members of the illusory life race for tens of thousands of years. At the moment before he left, none of the illusory fate race members showed any reluctance to leave this place. They didn't even look back. Even children were like this. It was obvious how much they wanted to escape this place. After all the members of the illusory life race left, Zhou Zhou looked at Long, who was motionless not far away. "Are you leaving too?" he asked. Long stood quietly where he was. Then, he nodded and silently walked towards the spatial passageway before disappearing. Only Zhou Zhou and the others from the Blazing Sun Kingdom were left in the Myriad Illusions small world. This world is not bad. If I can master the way to enter and exit freely and prepare enough resources, I can use it as a secret base. Wu Exine looked at this desolate world and lamented. Zhou Zhou also nodded. It was a world after all. No matter how desolate it still had its value. He thought for a moment and chose to leave 100 soldiers and enough supplies here to guard this world. In that case, the mysterious caravan's unlimited rite of passage, empire level, could still be used. Otherwise, if there was not a single faction in this world, the mysterious caravan's unlimited rite of passage, empire level, would lose its effect and they would not be able to come here again. After Zhou Zhou left behind 100 soldiers and corresponding survival resources, he did not stay any longer and left through the spatial passageway opened by the mysterious caravan with the other Blazing Sun Kingdom members. In the outside world, after Zhou Zhou and the others came out, they saw that Long, Cab, and the other illusory life race members had already boarded a Starry Night and were looking at the sea below excitedly through the Starry Night's external simulation mode. What dense water vapor! I've never felt such dense water vapor in my life. Is this the sea recorded in the books? It's so vast. Why does the seawater look a little dark? It's so scary, as if it leads to an abyss. More than 100 illusory life race members discussed animatedly, as if they had just come to a big city from a small place. Zhou Zhou and the others looked at each other and smiled. Even though they had a motive for rescuing them, Zhou Zhou and company still felt a sense of accomplishment when they saw them. "Thank you, Your Majesty. If not for His Majesty, we might have been trapped in that cage for the rest of our lives. We might not have seen such a scene even until we died. It's fine for us old fellows, but children can't have no future." At this moment, an elder one of the illusory life clan trembled as he came in front of Zhou Zhou and bowed respectfully. Then, he sighed. The other illusory life race members also reacted when they heard this. They surrounded Zhou Zhou and expressed their gratitude. The little cab looked at Zhou Zhou with shining eyes, his gaze filled with admiration. "You're too kind, everyone." Zhou Zhou nodded. After chatting with them for a while, he walked towards Long. When the illusory life race saw this scene, a hint of surprise flashed in their eyes. Some of them looked hesitant, but in the end, no one stopped them, because they trusted their emperor. "How's the outside world?" Zhou Zhou came in front of Long and looked at him. This guy's strength was only extraordinary tier advanced grade. Zhou Zhou was already at the intermediate grade epic tier. He could fight a god spirit, so he was naturally not afraid of him. At this moment, Long Zhang was standing in front of the exterior simulation, looking at the sea scenery outside in a daze. After hearing Zhou Zhou's words, he nodded subconsciously. "Nice. I just can't get enough of it. I will bring the thing you want to you," he said. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up. He took it from the air and checked it first. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with the jade slip, a trace of his consciousness entered it. The first jade slip recorded the sealing the heavens and sealing the earth, void concealing life. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up. This was because he discovered that even though this secret technique did not record the method to leave, it recorded the method to enter from the outside. Moreover, this method was very detailed. They could even use specific settings to only allow a specific bloodline life form to enter, or even a specific life form. The closed-off and confidentiality could be said to be extremely strong. However, even though there was a way to enter, Zhou Zhou did not intend to withdraw the 100 soldiers he had arranged previously. He even planned to send more people over. This way, he could build something in the Myriad Illusion's small world. In the future, if he really needed to settle down here, he could directly move in. The second Jade slip recorded a divination technique of the Eye of the Heavens anger. Zhou Zhou read this cultivation technique carefully and roughly understood how this cultivation technique had found the main generals of the Scarlet Divine Kingdom back then. According to the description of the Eye of the Heavens anger, this divination technique could make one feel an existence that was disliked by the Supreme Will in an extremely vast area. Moreover, the stronger one was, the more obvious the feeling of the users of the divination technique would be. Back then, this divination technique had been used more than 10 times by a high-tier deity-level elder of the illusory life race. He had divined all the northeast regions of the High Continent. This operation had almost found all the powerful Scarlet Generals. How big was the High Continent? The Lord of all races of the myriad worlds and countless life forms fought for supremacy here. But there was never a problem of insufficient land. Therefore, even the northeast region was vaster than hundreds or thousands of heavenly worlds. However, that was it. He was still divined by the high-tier deity-level illusory life race more than 10 times. It could be seen how powerful this divination technique was. Of course, even such a powerful divination technique had a huge restriction. In order to use the Eye of the Heavens anger, one had to possess the illusionary heavenly fate bloodline talent. Otherwise, he would not have been able to use the secret technique, the Eye of the Heavens anger. At this thought, Zhou Zhou's gaze landed on Cab and the other members of the illusory life race as he fell into deep thought. After thinking for a while, his gaze landed on the last black gold seed. This black gold seed was about the size of a walnut. It was completely black, and dark golden patterns covered its surface. It looked mysterious and precious. A fragrance that was similar to an orange, but somewhat different, emanated from its body. Zhou Zhou only took a whiff and his mind became much clearer. He even dared to become much clearer about the laws of the world. Item stats information appeared. Treasure name, Bodhi Supreme. Treasure grade, Mythical tier. Treasure effect 1, no doubts. With the Bodhi Supreme in your hand, ask the Bodhi Supreme the question in your heart. The Bodhi Supreme will give you an answer. Current number of questions answered, 1/3. Prompt. After the enhancement of your scavenger talent, the current number of questions answered by the Bodhi Supreme has increased to 2/3. Treasure effect 2, Bodhi Comprehension. With the Bodhi Supreme in your hand, your comprehension will increase greatly. Treasure description. A mythical tier treasure personally created by the Supreme Will. It can resolve all the doubts in the world. Zhou Zhou's expression turned solemn. Was this the Bodhi Supreme? It turned out that apart from being omnipotent, it could also help people improve their comprehension. What surprised Zhou Zhou the most was his green bronze tier lord talent, Scavenger, was actually useful against a mythical tier treasure like Bodhi Supreme. One had to know that Zhou Zhou had only seen such a mythical tier treasure like the Lord Talent Promotion Origin Crystals obtained during the Novice Lord test. That Origin Crystal made Zhou Zhou's legendary tier Lord Talent, 100% drop rate, become a mythical tier Lord Talent, King of Loots. As a treasure of the same level, this Bodhi Supreme could actually be enhanced by the green bronze tier Lord Talent. This was as ridiculous as the pedals of a bicycle running as fast as a high-speed rail. I'll upgrade my scavenger talent later. Maybe it can be used a few more times. Zhou Zhou thought. King of the Blazing Sun, can you promise me one more thing? I can give you some more benefits. At this moment, seeing that Zhou Zhou had finished checking the goods, Long spoke again. What benefits? Zhou Zhou immediately asked. Long could not help but laugh. This guy didn't even ask what was going on and directly asked for benefits. It's nothing. I just hope that you can take good care of the members of the illusory life race. Long said. What the hell do you mean? You're the one who ate the illusory life race and want me to take care of the illusory life race? Let me tell you a story, Long said. I don't want to hear it. Zhou Zhou said calmly. Long, why don't you play by the rules? Long sighed and started talking to himself. Once upon a time, there was a clan chief. He and his people were trapped in a world where they would die if they didn't get out. They tried everything to leave this world, but they couldn't. At this moment, an opportunity to answer any doubts has fallen into the hands of this patriarch. So he asked him how to solve the current predicament. The other party told him that if his illusory life race bloodline reached the level of a god spirit, he could rely on his bloodline talent to find a way to resolve his predicament. The other party even thoughtfully gave him a secret technique called blood seal. As long as this patriarch devoured the bloodline of his own race, he would be able to continuously increase the grade of his bloodline. The patriarch suffered when he learned the method. But after a long period of conflicted thoughts, he decided to use this method. Because he knows that if he doesn't use this method, all of his clansmen will die in this world. However, if he uses it, he might become a devil in the eyes of his clansmen. At the very least, his clansmen will have a chance to escape from the prison in the future and live. Let me ask you, what would you have done if you'd faced that predicament? Long asked him. Zhou Zhou said nothing. This question was really difficult to answer. Long laughed self-deprecatingly before Zhou Zhou could reply. I don't mean to wash my sins away by telling this story, because I did become the devil after all. He waved his right hand, and another jade slip appeared in his hand. This isn't the blood seal. It's a method that I've developed over the past thousands of years with my bloodline talent, the world-breaking divine spike. I specially researched it for the sealing the heavens, sealing the earth, and void life concealing technique. Even though it still can't break through the sealing the heavens, sealing the earth, and void life concealing technique. However, it shouldn't be a problem to break through the spatial lockdown below high-tier data levels such as time lockdown, illusion lockdown, energy lockdown, matter lockdown, and fate lockdown. As for the blood seal, it shouldn't have appeared in this world. That's why I'm not giving it to you, Long said in a low voice. Zhou Zhou naturally did not object. He did not need the blood seal spell. As the owner of the King of Loots and the Chaos human bloodline, he was born with the strongest means to obtain bloodlines and devour to evolve bloodlines. Naturally, he did not need the inferior blood restriction secret technique. Sure, I promise you, Zhou Zhou said. Then, he took the jade slip. He looked over. It indeed recorded the secret technique, world-breaking divine spike. Moreover, it was a high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade secret technique. Even though Zhou Zhou had many methods now, such methods to break through the blockade were indeed very rare. These secret techniques could make up for his shortcomings. At this moment, he suddenly felt something and his gaze shifted from the jade slip to Long. He stood quietly in front of the external simulation and looked at the sea outside without moving. The already weak life aura on his body had completely disappeared. He was dead. Zhou Zhou looked at him. He had nothing to comment on this special illusory life race. Just as he said, no matter what his original intention was, he did it. Since he had made this choice, he had to bear the consequences of it. They were either praises or infamy. As for whether it was right or wrong, he would leave it to future generations to evaluate. He walked up to him and placed his hand on his shoulder. Then, he extracted the loots. The next second, his corpse suddenly turned into countless loot and flew into Zhou Zhou's king's treasure box. Seeing this, Zhou Zhou began to check the loot he had obtained from the king's treasure box. Heaven Sealing Void Life Concealment Technique, Quicksand Divination Technique, Eye of the Heavens Anger, Spirit Forbidden Secret Technique, World-Breaking Divine Spike, Blood Seal. All kinds of loots appeared in the king's treasure box. Long was the former leader of the illusory life race after all. He had many skills, especially divination skills. However, Zhou Zhou was not interested in these loots. He even sealed it without looking at it when he saw the secret technique, Blood Seal. However, his eyes lit up when he saw one loot. It was a heart covered in an illusory white fog. Zhou Zhou looked at it. A text notification appeared. Bloodline name: Illusory Fate Race Bloodline. Bloodline level: Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Bloodline effect: after absorbing it, the user can obtain the bloodline of the Phantom Fate race. After fusing with this bloodline, the user will gradually awaken the bloodline ability of the Phantom Fate race during their growth. Prompt: fuse 100 sets of Legendary Tier Advanced Grade, Illusory Life Race Bloodline, and you can obtain 1 Low-Tier Deity Advanced Grade, Illusory Life Race Bloodline. After absorbing the bloodline of this Illusory Fate race, I can also master the Illusionary Heavenly Fate bloodline talent. Zhou Zhou looked at the bloodline and thought to himself. Then, he took it out of the king's treasure box and chose to absorb it without hesitation. A faint warmth appeared in Zhou Zhou's heart. At the same time, Zhou Zhou realized that his mind was clearer. At the same time, he had an inexplicable sense of the surrounding world. It's a little like a sixth sense, but I feel that it's even more mysterious than my sixth sense, Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. At this moment, the text notification of absorbing the bloodline finally appeared. You have absorbed one portion of the Illusory Fate race, Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. You have absorbed one portion of the 10,000 Gu King race, Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Your six senses have been slightly strengthened. You have awakened the Legendary Tier Advanced Grade Illusory Fate race talent, Illusionary Heavenly Fate. You have awakened the Legendary Tier Advanced Grade Illusory Fate race talent, Destiny Perception. You have awakened the Legendary Tier Advanced Grade Illusory Fate race talent, Mental Divination. You have grasped the Illusory Fate race's common sense inheritance. You have grasped the secret inheritance of the Illusory Fate race. Zhou Zhou looked at the awakened bloodline talents. Race talent name: Illusionary Heavenly Fate. Talent level: Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Talent description: as a member of the Illusory Life race, you can deduce and divine the future you want to know by consuming your life force or even your fortune. The smaller the impact the future deduced had on him and the world, the lower the consumption of his deduction and divination. The greater the impact the future deduced had on him and the world, the greater the consumption of his deduction and divination. Sometimes, he even had to deduce with all his fortune before he could deduce and divinate. Race talent name: Fate Perception. Talent level: Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Talent description: you have a certain talent in the law of fate. Sometimes, you will develop a specific vague perception of the fate of the myriad existences in the world. Race talent name: Mental Divination. Talent level: Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Talent description: the Illusory Life race is a natural divination race. They don't even need to use their bloodline talent to deduce some simple future divinations. They can deduce the results through mental divination. Zhou Zhou looked at the bloodline notifications thoughtfully.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.